from the blackest corners of your mind, they call, pulling you deep into shadow, twisting your senses, keeping you from sleep. It's time to face your darkest fears. This is Tales to Terrify. Good evening, children of the night, and welcome. For those of you who support us on Patreon, we've got some fresh new bonus content headed your way. A behind-the-scenes dive into the processes, personalities, and peculiarities of some of the most prolific contributors to our podcasts. Hosted by our own Seth Williams, our series of author interviews kicks off this Sunday with Patrick Barb, who we heard from just a couple of weeks ago. If you've ever wondered what goes through a writer's head as they pen these dark and devious tales, this is your window into that world. We'll be sharing more interviews with other popular Tales to Terrify contributors in the coming months. So, if you're not a supporter, it's a great time to join. Patreon.com/Tales to Terrify is where you can sign up to get in on all the terrifying action. Speaking of joining our Patreon, a huge thank you to our newest member, Melinda Cinnamon. Thanks for slipping into the shadows with us, Melinda. It makes our cadaverous hearts quiver with gratitude to welcome you behind the veil. Now, let's see what terrors lurk within the shadows this evening, shall we? Our first story for the evening comes from Rosemary Selking. Rosemary Selking currently resides in Kansas City. When not writing fiction, you can find her working her day job in logistics or playing roller derby. She does not have any pets, but she does have one son and a weighted blanket, which is basically the same thing. Children of the night, join me for Rosemary Selking's Lo Mein, a Tales to Terrify original.
Ding! I open the door of the decrepit microwave and absently begin to reach for my now thrice reheated leftovers. A flicker of movement catches my eye, and my hand freezes. Huh, I say, mostly to myself. Did it catch fire again? My coworker asks over his shoulder, not pausing in his perusal of the fridge. Not exactly. You should come take a look at this, Kyle. One sec. I wait a sec. I hear the telltale sound of styrofoam creaking, and then the refrigerator door closes with some amount of force. Kyle joins me at the microwave. I look sidelong at him. He's already most of the way into what looks like a street taco. That yours? I ask with a raised brow. He shrugs and says around a mouthful of mystery meat, is now, and swallows, audibly. What's up? I point to the microwave. He peers inside. Bro, what the? His taco collapses limply back into the styrofoam nest. What is it? Do I look like an expert in whatever that is? The thing in the microwave gives a wiggle of protest. How does this even happen, bro? Again, do I look like an expert? I was just trying to heat up my leftover lo mein, and then, well, this. Another wiggle. This one seems proud of itself. Kyle sets his pilfered lunch on the counter, his eyes still glued to my no longer lo mein. "Hey there, little buddy." "Kyle, what are you doing?" Kyle looks up at me, his boyish face serious. "He's just a little guy." I'm honestly not even sure it's a he. Oh, right. They're just a little them. He reaches towards the microwave. I grab his wrist. "Dude, no. Have you ever seen Venom?" Kyle rolls his eyes and shakes out of my grip. "Venom's an alien. This is obviously some kind of mutant." "Kyle, it's not a mutant. It's fucking lo mein." Was lo mein. The no longer lo mein stretches its inky tentacles and feels exploratorily along the edge of the Tupperware cage. It reaches one sticky, looping appendage timidly towards Kyle's still outstretched hand. Michelangelo would have been truly inspired by the scene. "What's the plan here?" I hiss. Kyle jabs his thumb in the direction of a sign taped to the fridge. It reads in large red Comic Sans letters, "Kitchen cleaned every Friday by 3 p.m. Use it or lose it." "So what?" I ask with a frown. "You gonna take it home with you?" "Sure, why not?" "It's not a pet." "Not with that attitude." "Kyle, be serious." "I am being serious. Don't be such a wet blanket." I raise an eyebrow at him. "Wet blanket." He shrugs. My no longer lo mein makes contact with Kyle's finger. "See? It's harmless," he admonishes me as the thing crawls farther up his arm. It looks like a sentient ferrofluid. Midway up his forearm, the creature stops. It lifts several tentacles, which undulate gracefully, as if caught in an invisible current. The mass that makes up its body seems to cock itself to one side, a curious puppy considering its playmate. Then, without warning, and almost too fast for my eyes to track, it expands outward and wraps its hundreds of tentacles around Kyle, engulfing him completely. In the blink of an eye, Kyle is devoured, and I am left standing in front of a much larger mask of tentacles that was once both my Friday lunch and my coworker. "What the fuck?" I whisper, mostly to myself. It jabs a tentacle at the sign on the fridge, then at the clock above the door. 3:02. I slowly step backwards towards the kitchen door. It watches me retreat, its tentacles wiggling and dancing merrily. I step across the threshold into the hallway. It waves a handful of tentacles at me, then launches itself at the tacos. In mere milliseconds, they and the styrofoam box are completely consumed. It turns to the fridge and begins sweeping the contents into its now gaping maw. I quietly close the door and grab a roll of tape, a pen, and some paper from a nearby desk. The sign isn't pretty, even for a rush job, but I hope it will do the trick. Cleaning in progress. Do not enter. My husband greets me with a kiss on the cheek as he takes my coat and purse and hangs them up. I murmur my thanks. "Long day?" he asks. I push the hair from my face and collapse onto the couch. "You could say that." "I figured," he said. "Just to be on the safe side, I went ahead and ordered dinner." "You're so thoughtful," I say with a smile. "What did you order me?" He smiles back. "How do you feel about a little lo mein?"
That was Rosemary Selking's Lo Mein, as read by Seth Williams. Seth Williams is the managing editor here at Tales to Terrify. He has narrated stories for Tales to Terrify, Far-Fetched Fables, and Starship Sofa. When not day jobbing, he enjoys listening to fiction podcasts and audio drama. He shares his life with an amazing partner, dog, and a cat. Thank you, Seth. Our second tale tonight comes from Justin Moritz. Justin Moritz is a non-binary writer of queer horror, exploring the grotesquely campy and the filthy underside of society. Raised on true crime and horror movies from way too young, their work explores the terror of living as a queer person in modern times, with a speculative twist. Their short fiction and poetry have been featured in Leviathan Library's Twisted Anatomy, a body horror anthology, Death Knell Press's Nightmare Sky Stories of Astronomical Horror, and several Scare Street anthologies. Listen with me, children of the night, to Justin Moritz, What a Mother Would Do, a Tales to Terrify original.
Was I not his mother? He came into the world breeched, born blue, hastily swaddled and passed into my arms as soon as it was clear it was too late. The room was dead quiet, except for my girlfriend Alana's weepy questioning about what was the matter, as the midwife blotted the sweat from her forehead. The doctor tried to explain that the baby was stillborn, as I cradled our child in my arms. I peeled back the blanket, placing a hand upon his chest. Drawing a breath into my own lungs, I willed his heart to beat. And he did, his cries a proclamation of divine intervention. The midwife declared it was a miracle, but I knew better. It wasn't my hips that cracked, nor my organs that shifted to bring his broken body into this world. I had imbued life into his body by impossible means, but it wasn't a miracle. It was an exchange. In giving him life, I had swallowed the death from his body, the poison seeping into my veins as Alana smiled at the baby. Is that not what a mother would do? Yet, when the time came to sign off on his birth certificate, Alana jumped forward as the clerk inquired who was the child's mother. When the woman asked for the name of the child's father, Alana and I just stared at one another. I thought for a moment that I would tell her the truth, accept this compulsory title because, after all, it was my semen that had conceived our son. However, I bit my tongue hard enough to draw blood, knowing that our son would know this truth only behind closed doors. A bastard on paper had a better chance in this world than a boy with two mothers, one of whose existence was a matter of public debate. That first week, Alana took to being a mother like a soldier takes to being a makeshift medic, forced to hold the bandages against his own stomach in the moments after a bullet tears through. She cared for the child with desperate attention. Even as he gently slumbered in her arms, she wouldn't rest. Instead, she watched him with worry, absently scratching the inflamed skin beneath her hospital bracelet as she made sure he continued to breathe. I ran her a bath, dumping in Epsom salts and scented oils in the hope that familiar comfort would cause her to relax. But Alana sat beside the crib, unlistening as I announced, "I'll watch him. Don't worry, Alana." "I don't know if I trust you, Jasmine." Alana said it without acknowledging the venom she'd thrown in my direction. Instead, she cooed, "He's just so perfect. I worry if I look away that he might disappear." "He'll be fine. I promise." What if he stops breathing? You know I won't let that happen, I whispered into her ear, gently collecting his weight in my arms as she nodded and looked one last time behind her as she disappeared into the bathroom. It was strange to hold him. In the days since his birth, I couldn't recall a moment when Alana had let me hold him for more than a passing moment. He looked up at me with a curious expression, almost as if he was meeting a stranger. Our son's little hands grasped for my fingers, pulling the nub of my index finger into his mouth and suckling the remaining knuckle. The story was that a dog took my finger when I was 13, but the truth was that the dog was only responsible for the teeth marks scarring my wrist. The dog, a pest that hung around the trailer park named Nigel, had been struck by a car that didn't even slow after the collision. His ribcage had exploded inwards with a wet thunk, pulverized against the car's front bumper. A neon yellow tennis ball lay just out of his open jaws, flecked red with hot blood. I pulled him onto my lap, petting his face as he wheezed and choked. He went so deathly still, so quiet that it frightened me. I wished he would whimper once again, if only for my own comfort. But then my hand began to tingle, a strange heat emanating from my palm and rousing him awake. Nigel peeled his lips back, a growl escaping his throat. He woke up angry, his rib cage sagging beneath the weight of broken bone. Torn away was the sweet comfort of death, and in its place, pain once again surged through his ragged form. He tore his teeth into my wrist, ripping ragged holes into the soft flesh before slinking off into the woods. I'd removed my t-shirt to tie around the wound, my bare chest burning beneath the sun in that last summer of my forgotten boyhood. As I walked back to the trailer park, something began to feel off. While the injured wrist throbbed, reminding me of its existence, my index finger on the opposite hand went numb. Suddenly, I was woozy, realizing that what I had just done had defied the natural order of things. I stumbled back home, collapsing on the makeshift porch of my father's trailer. My finger extended to press the buzzer. The top half laid a half a foot further, disconnected from the rest of my body. For the life I breathed into the dead, a rot chilled my flesh, cutting off the circulation, turning once pliable tissue necrotic and stiff. That day, I had promised to never use this power again. But as I stared down at the beautiful child in my lap, I knew that this oath had become null and void. My word didn't matter nearly as much as he did, wiggling in my grasp and discovering his toes and fingers for the first time. I smiled at him. He laughed. And I found myself laughing too, even as the question remained. What must I sacrifice for you to be here? But I knew the answer to that question. It didn't matter what happened to me if he was alive and well. If I had failed to give him life, we would surely be planning his funeral. But instead, he lay in my arms cooing, promising one day that this apartment could be filled with joy instead of the stagnant silence of Alana and I's relationship. This baby was a second chance for us. Alana came from a broken home, her mother forgetting her father over a pint of whiskey, her father dead in a ditch somewhere. She wanted this baby to have 2 parents and a happy home, a perfect childhood that she knew she couldn't deliver on her own. So here I remained, my face pressed against our baby's forehead. His little hands grasped for any handhold. Newborn fingers tangled in my unwashed hair, his little fingernails as sharp as blades. His grip tightened, so I kissed him in the hopes that his tight fists would relax at the gesture. But instead, the baby changed targets and yanked at my ear, digging those half-moon daggers into the cartilage. I bit into my lip to avoid shouting out. I would never raise my voice to him. No matter how much he hurt me, no matter how much his mother hurt me, I would bear the pain. I let him pull on the organ till I was on the point of tears. One hard tug, and it severed from my head. The flesh rubbery and blackened just hours after I traded a bit of flesh for his life. Even with the shriveling ear clutched in his hand, I couldn't help but smile. He was perfect. "You have to go to sleep," I whispered, as I dozed beside Alana with the baby in the crib beside her. "If I look away..." "You can't watch him his whole life." "I can try." I sat up, wrapping my arm around her, drawing her into the gravity that I knew she couldn't resist. We fell back onto the bed, but still her head craned to look towards the sleeping baby. "He's too little, Jasmine." Tears filled her eyes, threatening to spill over at just the thought. "He'll get bigger." "If I wanted, I could crush the life out of him," Alana sobbed. "I could shake him till his spine shatters, till he goes limp. And I would bring him back." Alana sighed, reaching up to push my hair away. I had wrapped my head with a bandage, fearful that the gaping hole in my head would make her sick. But still she reached up to touch the spot, her fingers gently digging into swollen tissue. "If I can't protect him, would you keep bringing him back? Always. Even if it killed you. I'd die for him if it meant saving him." "Promise?" Alana said, holding out her pinky. I locked pinkies with her. "I promise." Sometimes I wondered what happened to Nigel the dog. I used to lie to myself and say that he stumbled off into those woods and his body healed, even with his ribs jutting out 1,000 directions and his head turned backwards. But stranger things have happened. He'd peeled himself off the asphalt, after all. I had been hopeful that our son had simply failed to breathe in those first few moments of life, that an X-ray would surely show everything in order, that his lack of self-sufficiency was simply a fluke. His blood work came back normal. No MRI or CAT scan showed his body riddled with cancer. We wanted answers, but all we were given was business as usual. A healthy baby boy. Yet I sat there in the corner of the room, a large hoodie pulled over my head to hide the hole where my ear had once been. Alana found him a week later. Unresponsive. Suffocated with not so much as an indication why. No sheets tangled about his throat. No head pinned between crib and mattress. Just lying there dead. She ran the baby's body into the living room, thrusting him into my arms while sobbing. "You have to do something." But even holding him, swaddled in his blankets, I could feel the cold of his body, the rigidity of his muscles. He had died in the night, yet she had just discovered him moments before. "He's cold already." "You promised me you would protect him." "I don't know if you can." "You have to try." Alana collapsed on the floor, pawing at my legs as I pulled the baby's blanket away and laid his still corpse on the dining room table. I undid the snaps of his onesie, my stomach dropping as I looked upon his blue and bloated belly. He didn't look peaceful, didn't look natural like he was sleeping. He was dead, despite Alana's constant watching. But I had promised, so I placed my hands on his chest. And as soon as I touched him, I recoiled, a sharp pain stabbing into the pads of my fingers. Blood dripped from beneath my nail beds, yet he lay still. I gritted my teeth, forcing my hand to touch his skin. Despite the chilled pallor of his corpse, it felt as if I had placed my hand against a hot griddle. I screamed out, recoiled once again. His body spasmed, not alive, but twitching. "Try again. It hurts," I howled. "My heart is breaking," Alana sobbed. "If you won't bring him back to me, then all you're doing is breaking it again." I dug my teeth into my lip, sucked in a shallow breath as I placed my palm against his chest once again. Pain exploded up my arm, clawing its way closer and closer to my rapidly beating heart. The baby writhed beneath my touch, and even when my skin began to blister, blood and hot pus dripping down my wrists, I didn't recoil. I screamed until he drew in a breath and screamed in tandem. But Alana wasn't convinced, reaching over to grab my wrist and hold my hand against his chest till he calmed and quieted. She drew the baby into her arms, disappearing into his nursery. Alana didn't even look at me as I watched my right hand crumble, collapsing to the floor in a pile of blackened, dry flesh. Our lives became a series of unfortunate accidents. The child slipping beneath the bathwater, heart stopping mid-laugh. Time and time again, I made an exchange, trading my last remaining fingers for a few more moments with him. Then my teeth. Then my scalp came off in ragged, dried patches. Yet each time Alana discovered him, she would react with the same heartbroken anguish, forcing me to only quiet her with the comfort of resurrection. One morning, she came rushing into the bedroom, desperately shaking his swaddled form in my direction, shouting, "If you loved him, you would save him." All I exist for is to love him, yet I hardly see him. I mumbled from my perpetual position laid out on the sofa, awaiting her beck and call. "I can't help that the baby loves his mother more than you," Alana said, her foot impatiently tapping away. "Am I not his mother? Have I not given him life time and time again?" "It's a thankless job being a parent," Alana said, repeating some line she read in a parenting book. "It's not my fault that he and I have a special connection. It was my womb that kept him alive for 9 months after all." "I have given him my ear and my hand, my hair and my teeth." I looked at the bundle in my lap. "I don't know if I can keep doing this, cutting myself into smaller pieces for a child that seems so desperate to die." "It is what a mother would do," Alana slobbered, the desperation causing her whole body to shake. "And as someone who loves you and loves this child, I worry that we are delaying the inevitable. Another hour, another minute. If I do this, you'll never be able to grieve. All I have experienced these past few weeks is grief. I refuse to experience it again." I stood up, pushed past her. She screamed as I walked towards the door, grabbing for my coat. I would leave and call an ambulance. I would explain that Alana needed help, that the baby had died, that she'd fallen into a fit. I heard footsteps behind me. Didn't even have time to turn as she brandished a heavy dumbbell, swinging it at my head. There was a wet crunch, an odd popping sound deep in my head, my vision going black. I awoke to half the world blotched out, the right side of my vision gone, the gooey sensation of my eye resting against the skin of my cheek, my pulverized eyeball hanging heavy on the stalk. Our baby boy was laid in my lap, swaddled in a stained blanket. Electrical cords turned into makeshift bindings held my arms and legs to a kitchen chair. I blinked at the bundle in my lap, remembering the animalistic sound of Alana's tears. Alana had the lights turned low, but even then, the hallway light from beneath the apartment door made my head flare with pain. The sound of her filling a glass at the sink was too much, cacophonous in a way that made me crave the possibility of death. "I didn't want to do that," Alana mumbled as she held the water to my lips. I drank only because it was the only option presented to me, the cords tied too tight for me to escape. "What if I scream?" "You wouldn't do that." "How do you know that?" "Because if you did, I'd be forced to bash your brains in. Then they'd come and find me. They'd send me off to prison, and you know that I wouldn't make it that long there," Alana said. "You wouldn't want to end our family in one fell swoop, would you? So go ahead. Yell." "You won't hurt me." Talking made my entire body writhe with pain. "You won't hurt me worse than you already did." "Because I love you?" Alana cooed softly, shaking her head. "We had this baby as a last-ditch effort to save our relationship. We might as well admit it. I haven't loved you in a long time, and based on the look on your face, you don't love me anymore either." "You hit me over the head. My eye is hanging out of my fucking head, Alana." "You were going to abandon me and our child." "He's dead, Alana." Alana pulled back the blanket, forcing his body beneath my hand, shouting, "Do it!" "I won't." "Must I beg?" "I won't, out of love." "You don't love me. You don't love him." Alana sobbed, yanking at her hair with violent vigor. "I don't want him to suffer. I don't want you to suffer by holding on to a pipe dream of this life we'll have with him." "I don't want a life. I just want one more moment," Alana said, brandishing a knife. "If you won't do it, I guess I'll have to convince you that it's your only choice." She said it so suddenly calm, as if the logic behind her violence justified it. I tried to reel back as she dove at me, twirling the stalk of my eye around her fingers just like she used to twirl my hair as we laid in bed. My teeth gnashed into my lip, tearing my bottom lip into jagged chunks as I tried to stay quiet. It didn't take much for her to slice off the eye, dropping it to the floor, a resounding splat as she stomped it beneath her shoe. "If I have to make you hurt, I'll make you hurt." "Then hurt me. I won't bring him back," I said, spitting blood at her feet. Alana's face contorted into a look of absolute, wild rage. She rushed me again, and I winced, expecting her to stab me in the gut. But instead, she dug the tip of the knife into the throbbing flesh of her own throat, blood trickling down as she twisted the knife. "Do it, or I'll gut myself, slowly, so that I'm certain that I suffer, that you suffer watching me as I bleed out." I looked down at his body, lowered my hand so it touched his bare chest. As soon as I did, I could feel my energy trickle into his corpse. But I held back, watching Alana's grip on the knife soften as she lessened the pressure against her own throat. The longer I held my hand against his body, the more I could feel the life drain from my own body. My toes went numb, turning purple as the tissue died. It would take more this time. An arm or leg at least. "Put the knife down, Alana." "Not till he breathes." I pressed my one remaining hand firmer against his chest, but the warmth that radiated from my hand was crushed beneath the cold that slipped into my body. His body twitched, but not as it had before. Nerves fired, but not in the way healthy ones did. His muscles spasmed, limbs violently shaking as if an electric beam was directed through his body. "I can't," I sobbed, drawing in a deep breath to try again to wake him. But still the baby simply writhed, his eyes unlooking, his lungs unbreathing. "Come on, baby boy." Alana fell to her knees, pressing my hand harder against the body. I tried to pry myself free, but she drove the knife through my thigh. I prayed that he would breathe so she would let go. Finally, his chest began to rise, a sputtering breath drawn into his lungs. When he cried, the sound was hoarse and sharp, unnatural, life forced into a body that was long past the point of resurrection. Alana cradled the baby in her arms, gently cooing as he dug his little reanimated hands into her arm, drawing blood with those razor-sharp infant nails. She laughed, leaned in to kiss his face, didn't even cry out as he yanked a clump of hair from her head. My whole foot had gone numb. I shook against my restraints, and that was enough to cause it to detach from the calf downward with a splat. A chunk of dead, soon-to-be rotting meat on the floor. Alana collected the baby's blanket, swaddling him once again against her chest. She smiled at me as she looked past the gore of his reincarnation. "You really do love me, don't you?" Alana said, gently placing her hand against my cheek. "Let me go." Alana looked at the baby, then at me. "We need you, so he can live a long, happy life." "Alana, let me go." "A child needs his mother." Alana squeezed my hand. "And a mother would do anything for her child. Isn't that right?" I nodded my head. I was his mother, so I would give him everything. Every last breath, every last inch of living flesh would be his. I would die for him because I loved him. It's what a mother would do.
That was Justin Moritz's What a Mother Would Do, as read by Krystal Hammond. Krystal Hammond is a narrator/writer, cancer survivor, and non-binary queer human. They grew up in rural North Carolina, nurtured by a steady diet of local Blackbeard legends and Confederate ghost stories. These nuggets of folktale and myth fostered a lifelong love of storytelling and all the drama that goes with it. They also have a master's degree in biological anthropology and adore ugly cats. Feel free to check out their narration website at krystalhammond.com or find them on Twitter at the KM Hammond. Thank you, Krystal. Well, children of the night, the hour is late and we've run out of tales to tell. For now. Tales to Terrify is made possible by the tremendous generosity of our supporters on Patreon and PayPal. Incredible fans like Lestle Baxter, Amanda Carrillo, Amanda Gottfried, and Orion D. Hegre, whose generous support keeps these lights on and flickering ominously. If you're not a supporter, head over to patreon.com/Tales to Terrify. You'll find all kinds of perks, like ad-free episodes, bonus content, and one-of-a-kind collectibles. Every dollar goes back into this show, and we appreciate your support so much. Want another way to support the show that doesn't cost you a cent? Head over to Podchaser, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts and drop us a 5-star review. You'll not only put an unnaturally wide smile on our faces, but help new listeners discover our terrifying tales, too. You can show your love of the show out in the world with some Tales to Terrify merch. TalesToTerrify.com/merch will take you to our TeePublic store, where we've got a great collection of creepy custom and curated designs. Tales to Terrify is produced by Seth Williams, Meredith Morgenstern, Andrew Gibson, Krystal Hammond, Spencer Disparty, and myself, Drew Sebastini, with original theme by Nebulous Entertainment. Tales to Terrify is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license. Join us again next week as we find ourselves fall prey to more Tales to Terrify.